Hello and welcome back to another KCC video. I'm Rob and today we'll be jumping into ProRevenge. Before we start, please hit that subscribe button and click the notification bell so you know when the next video goes live. Our first story today comes to us from Subliminal23. Accuse me of stealing? I'll ruin your business and life. Let's jump right in. This little story of revenge is about how I got even with a former boss and how I destroyed his and his business partner's life in the process. Many years ago, I worked at an electronics repair store that will not be named. It was the only one in our smallish town, so everyone came there. I worked my way up from lowly tech to store manager in roughly 6 months. A few months after I made store manager, one of the owners, who we will call Dundas, insisted on bringing his nephew in as a part-time employee. Don't get ahead of me, Redditors. I initially didn't have any issues with the kid. He had come to the store on multiple occasions, and we would all sit around in the back and talk, so again, I had no issues with bringing him on part-time. For a good month or two, the kid, who we will call Kevin, busted his behind, did everything right. He could solder an HDMI port on a PS4 in minutes, one less thing for me to do. Profits for the store were skyrocketing, and things seemed rather fine from where I was standing. I was due to make a fairly large bonus that year, as long as the store kept turning the amount of money it was turning. I figured at this time we could make Kevin our assistant manager, and I could go back to doing paperwork, inventory orders, and such, and leave the running of things to him. Well, mistakes were definitely made. I had a bad habit of writing down my login pin because Dennis and his business partner Jay were idiots and wanted the pin to be 1,000,000 digits long. These pins were required to access everything from sales data to the cash register and more. Anyway, around the time that I was turning over the majority of stuff to Kevin to do, I also started taking classes at the local university. So again, me being the idiot that I was, would leave to go to class before coming back and finishing my shift. Dennis and Jay were fine with this as long as I left someone competent in charge. Fast forward to the end of the month when accounts receivable numbers were run, and wouldn't you know it, we were short by thousands that month. I discussed everything with Dennis and Jay, and we assumed it was a computer glitch. There was no way after almost a year of working there that the numbers were off. I had never had this happen before. The next month, we were once again off. It was around this time that Dennis and Jay came to me and started accusing me of stealing from them. They pointed out all of the days that the numbers didn't match up and saw that I was always closing that night. When I tried to explain to them that I was in class on those days when the money came up missing, and suggested that they look at Kevin, Dennis blew his top. He said, "How dare I accuse his nephew of anything? That it was my PIN used to access the register, etc." Needless to say, I was fired. Luckily, they didn't call the cops because, in Jay's words, I had made them a boatload of money. Plan. A couple of years had passed since I was working there. I graduated college with a degree in business and had moved on with my life, or so I thought. One night while I was out at the store, I heard from behind me, "Yo, thief!" As I turn around, I see Kevin and Dennis with crap-eating grins on their faces. I shrug it off and walk away, continuing to hear their childish taunts. While in my car, I began to formulate a plan. I was going to crush these mother effers no matter how long it took. It took me 2 months of planning, but finally, I figured that I would use my social engineering skills and my business savvy to completely crash their business. I broke the HDMI port on my PS4 on purpose and took it in to have it fixed. Kevin and a girl that had started there a few weeks earlier were the only two working. "Hey, welcome to such and such. Oh, it's you, thief. What can I help you with?" "First off, you can stop calling me that. You and I both know it's BS. Sorry, dude. Dennis told me to call you that. I'm sorry how everything went down. What can I help you with?" "My HDMI port broke. Do you guys still repair them?" "Yeah, we still repair them. It's $115. "Damn, you guys went up in price? Good on you. So how's everything been since I left? You mean since you were fired for stealing? Yeah, whatever. We both know that was BS. I knew Kevin was trying to impress the girl, but didn't care at that minute. We'll come back to her. As I glanced around, I saw that they had added some new things to the store, including OtterBox cases and such. Whoa, that's new. How did you guys manage to get in with OtterBox? Oh, we didn't. They kept turning us down. So I found a Chinese distro. We get them for $5 and sell them for $30. Me thinking to myself, this dude loves to blab. I need him to keep it up. So how much have the prices gone up on other things? Oh, quite a bit actually. You thought you were turning this store a profit? Let me show you something. He showed me their new price list, which was insane on the pricing, and also a big mistake. Revenge is mine. I never believed in ripping anyone off, so I always convinced Dennis and Jay our pricing was fair, and that they didn't need to charge a lot for repairs since they were the only game in town they had everyone by the balls. After the work was finished, I said goodbye and made sure to wave to the girl as I walked out. This is when my plan really went into motion. I had everything I needed to crush these mother effers, all except a building. The next day, I looked around for a location to begin to dismantle their monopolistic hold on the town. As luck would have it, a location right across the street from their store was coming up for rent. I quickly signed the lease and began to distribute flyers, letting the town know about our coming grand opening. On the flyer, I was offering 90% off the first repair. Basically, I was doing the work for free, just all they had to do was pay the part price. Opening day comes and I have 60 people there to get repairs, ranging from iPhone screen repairs to simple PC tune-ups. This went on like this for months. Sure, I was taking a loss on the building rent, but this being a smallish town, the rent was easily manageable. After things started to settle down and business became steady, Dennis and Jay started losing massive business due to the new guy in town. They still hadn't realized it was me. Jane walked in as I was closing up shop. Jane, if you recall, was the girl who worked for Dennis that Kevin was trying to hit on. Apparently, she had been let go that night and was looking for another job. I immediately gave her the job because she knew her stuff. I asked her what all happened over there, and she said everything has gone to crap, and that the store has been losing tens of thousands since this place opened, and that she would have left sooner if she didn't need the job. Kevin apparently really liked her and couldn't keep his hands to himself. A month after Jane came in, Dennis and Jay came in to see who their new competition was. As they walked in, I greeted them as I do any customer. Welcome to New Guy's Electronic Repair. How can I help you? Does the owner know he hired a thief? Oh, I'm sure he knows you're full of crap on that one. Get me your manager, you piece of crap thief. Sir, I am the manager. How can I help you? Well, is the owner here? Yes, sir, he is. Good then, go get him so that I can tell him what a thief you are. Sure, 1 minute. I walk into the back and start talking to Jane. We both enjoy a laugh because she overheard this dude. I walk out of the back and look at Dennis. How can I help you? You can stop playing games and get me your owner. Pointing to the sign behind me. Yeah, that's me. How can I help you? You're the one that has been taking all of our business? Yep, you called me a thief when you knew all along it was your piece of crap nephew that was stealing from you. I made it my life's mission to destroy you the day you and Kevin called me a thief in the store. You couldn't leave well enough alone. You mean to tell me that this is his fault? Looking at Dennis. Yep, and yours as well. You had a chance to stick up for me and didn't. If I can't assist you gentlemen with the repair or anything, I kindly ask that you leave my store. F you haven't heard the end of us. This quite literally cracked me up, the dude trying to talk tough. I laughed as they stormed out of my store. About this time, Jane came out from the back area and dropped her phone. I bent down to pick it up and noticed that it was the fake OtterBoxes that the other store was selling. I made an anonymous tip to OtterBox regarding them selling counterfeits. Boy, let me tell you, Otterbox doesn't effing play. Within a week, the other store was raided. Kevin, Dennis, and Jay were all arrested for selling counterfeit items and were sued into bankruptcy. As for Jane and I, well, we just welcomed our first child into the world and have been married for a year and a half. If you're reading this, Kevin, little effing thief, not only did I cost you and your uncle everything, but I also took your woman. Go suck an eggplant. So it turns out in the end that OP was the thief. They stole the girl. OP sounds like the kind of person that's really good at carving out their own path, or really good at writing a story. I'm kind of on the wall. Our next story comes to us from Rock Expat, How My Grandpa Became the Owner of a Gas Station and Garage. Let's jump right in. My family immigrated to America in the 1880s and settled in Nebraska. We were farmers for the first 80 years or so, but back in the 1960s, my great-grandma decided she was going to sell the entire farm before she died and simply give her sons 1/3 of the money for inheritance when she passed. She had 3 sons. In 1969, my great-grandma passed, and her 3 sons inherited the money she had earned from selling the farm. My grandpa decided he would basically let that money sit until after he retired from the military. In 1971, he deployed to Vietnam for his second and final deployment. At the end of his deployment, he returned to Nebraska and retired after 22 years in the service. Now, he had an old Chevy truck at the time and was in the process of building a concrete business with the money he had gotten from his inheritance. Well, during this time, his truck engine blew up. My grandpa was busy at the time, and he didn't want to fool with the truck because he was busy. So he bought himself the engine he wanted to replace it with, which was an upgrade, and he went down to the only garage in town and asked them if they'd be willing to put the engine in the truck. They agreed on a price and told him to come back in a week or so. A week later, my grandpa comes back and picks up the truck. He admits he felt like a fool for not double-checking the work, but assumed, since this was the son of his friend, that the son would do right by him. This was a small town. Well, my grandpa opens up the concrete business and he's busy. It comes time for his first oil change. This is about 4 months after he got the truck. He's doing the oil change and he notices that the engine he bought isn't the engine in his truck. It's a smaller engine. This obviously pisses him off to high heaven, as my grandma liked to say. So he storms on down to the garage and talks to the shop. Earl was the owner. Earl comes out and denies any wrongdoing, says he did as he was told, and it shouldn't have taken him 4 months to bring the issue up. My grandpa tells Earl he needs to do what's right. Earl refuses. It's important to note this is a small town. Written contracts and so forth really aren't a thing. Your worth is your word. My grandpa tells Earl he's going to get him for this. Earl laughs and tells him to leave his shop. My grandpa goes down to the county and requests the record for who owns that gas station. Turns out it's an old family friend named Harold. My grandpa stops by Harold's house and starts inquiring about the business deal Harold has with Earl. Harold says, well, Earl rents the gas station and garage from him. My grandpa asks Harold how is everything going, and Harold confides that Earl hasn't paid his rent in 2 months. My grandpa asks, do you have a written lease with Earl? To which Harold goes, nah, I sure don't. My grandpa then asks, what if I bought the gas station and garage from you? Harold isn't completely on board with the idea, but my grandpa makes a strong point. Earl isn't paying his rent. Harold doesn't seem like he has much interest in being a landlord anymore, and my grandpa has the cash to buy the place outright. Harold, sensing something is up, asks my grandpa, did Earl do something to you? You seem awfully interested in this garage. Ain't you busy with that concrete business of yours? And my grandpa fills Harold in on the story. My grandpa also mentions that he has a son, my father, who needs something to do, and he'd be happy to buy the whole building from Harold for a fair price, and what happens after that is his business. Also, it's important to note when Harold decided to rent this business to Earl, In that deal went all the equipment and tools that Harold had acquired over the years, so those belonged to the building. Harold and my grandpa came to a number that they both agreed on. A few days later, my grandpa paid Harold in cash, in full for the business. The paperwork is done, and my grandpa is now the proud owner of a gas station and mechanic shop. Now, my grandpa senses that Earl ain't gonna be too pleased when my grandpa fires Earl. So, for extra good measure, my grandpa calls up the local sheriff, who is a high school friend, and asks the sheriff to come with him to break the news to Earl. So my grandpa and the sheriff go down to Earl's now former business, and they walk in, and before my grandpa can even say hello, Earl says, "Now I told you I didn't cheat you." My grandpa smiles and says, "I'm not here about my truck, I'm here to fire you." Earl, with a look of confusion on his face, asks, "You can't fire me, I own this business." My grandpa shows him the title and says, "I'm now the owner of this building," to which Earl fires back, "But I gotta deal with Harold." And the sheriff speaks up, "You do? Do you have a lease?" "Well, no," Earl says, to which the sheriff smiles and says, "In that case, you're going to need to take your stuff and leave." Earl is fuming, grabs his toolbox, and storms out. My grandpa ended up hiring the mechanic that would occasionally work on his trucks at his concrete business. He had my aunt and grandma run the gas station full time, and my dad would work there after school. We owned that garage for 25 years before my grandpa sold it to someone else. There's a great comment down below the original story on Reddit. It says, "Never mess with ordinary looking people. You never know how much money they might have to ruin you with." Thank you to both OPs for posting their stories in the ProRevenge subreddit. They are linked in the description below. Please go check them out. Check out one of these other videos, and if you haven't yet, please hit that subscribe button for more daily Reddit stories.